in, so I don't have any sound. What's going on? Josh Beatley here with the Guitar Player School for the free 4 p.m. guitar lesson. And today is called How to Create Endless Soloing Ideas. Now, the premise behind this is that if you're interested in learning lead guitar, a big challenge that a lot of people face when they're trying to learn how to solo is they feel like they're just going up and down scales. And if that's you, that's okay. It's something that all guitar players go through. I go through it myself even from time to time, where I feel like I'm playing the same stuff over and over again. And it's a common struggle and it's really frustrating. It's something that makes you want to not play the guitar. But if you want to know how to express yourself and come up with some creative ideas, then this video is the one for you. Below, there's also a link to my page where if you enter your email address, you can get access to the How to Solo in Any Key Instantly lesson, and you also get 12 free backing tracks with that. So if you're interested in learning how to expand your lead guitar playing, that's the link you want to click, and you'll also obviously get access to this lesson as well. So let's dive right into it. Busting out this guitar, I haven't played this one in a while. All right, so let's see if I can get the whole guitar on the frame. Okay, so variety. How to create variety when you feel like you've been playing the same thing from a lead guitar perspective, playing the same thing over and over again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one simple lick, and the lick is going to go like this. Thank you guys so much for those of you guys joining live. Do me a favor, hit the like, leave a comment, ask a question, share this with your friends. It helps it get out there. Again, I'm doing a lesson today on how to get endless soloing ideas. This is like, now this doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to endlessly solo over anything. This is just if you feel like you're playing stuck and you're playing the same licks over and over again, this is how you can get some variety in your playing. Okay, so here's the lick. Okay, so when you're playing a lick, the listener is going to remember the last thing that you play the most. So if you play and you totally bomb that last note, it's what they're going to remember. And it doesn't matter how awesome the first thing you play is, the last note is what they're going to remember in particular. So what you want to do is come up with like a few variations of how you decide to play the last note. So the last note has a lot of variations that we can do. We can just add simple vibrato to it. We can make the last note staccato and play it a few times. You can slide into the last note. You can bend into the last note. Okay, so by just changing the way that you focus on the last note, you're starting to change your brain from what do I play next to how do I play this? And how you decide to play something is really what's going to help you convey emotion rather than just focusing on your fingers and the notes and what frets you're playing and music theory and technique and all that stuff. Which is all still well and good, but if you can't make one note beautiful, you're not going to be able to make several notes beautiful. Okay. So let's talk about repetition. What you can do is take a piece of the lick and repeat it a couple times, maybe 2 or 3 times, so that your listener gets pulled in by the repetition, and then you end it. So I didn't do anything except just repeat that little chromatic part. Right? Or what if I just repeat the first 2 notes? Okay, so now we've got some really cool ideas, and it's still the same lick. We haven't really done anything to it except extended it a little bit by adding some variety. All right, so hey, thank you guys so much for those of you guys joining. I really appreciate it. Doing a free lesson on how to come up with endless soloing ideas, and this is just going to help you get unstuck if you feel like when you're soloing, you're always playing the same licks. So variety, repetition. maybe you start adding some phrasing into the parts that you're repeating now. So like maybe you pick the first time and then you hammer on the second time. Okay, maybe some of them are ringing and some of them are staccato. Okay, so thinking about how you're playing the note instead of what note you're playing can totally change the game for you. All right, so now we're going to add a little bit more to this. We're going to create a tail. So a tail is when you add a few extra notes at the end of the scale, or at the end of the lick. So these sound best when you pick another note in the scale. But what we're going to do in this instance is almost every time you land on the root for the last note, you can either slide up a whole step, which is going to land on the 9 or the 2 of the chord, or you can slide down a half step or a whole step. It kind of depends on what chord you're playing. So now I'm going to go. And then I could go back to the root. So now we're changing it by adding a new pitch, but only adding like one small piece to it. In that instance, I did 2 neighboring notes. So here was the A that I landed on. I did the note below it, the note above it, and then went back to it. So I kind of encased that root note. And you get a really cool... like a little cadence at the end of there. Da 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 ba da. Okay, so what if I add some repetition and some phrasing to that? See, you remember that, right? Okay, so what? Still there, Facebook? Okay, good. Got a call from Fresno, California. Okay, what if I add in a couple extra notes up front? So now now I'm gonna go. So now I'm just adding a piece up front, so the opposite of the tail. I guess you could add a lead to it, a head to it. And now you're starting to expand the idea, but the main theme is still there. So let's review what we went over. We went over how to change the phrasing of the last note by bending, sliding, vibrato, staccato, trills, harmonics, anything to add that. Second thing, repetition. You can repeat some of the middle of the idea 2 or 3 times and then end it, and what's going to happen is your list is going to get pulled in by the repetition. Third thing is you can add some alternate notes at the end. You can either change the last note entirely or add a couple notes at the end and then land on the original last note. Or you can add a lead in, which is a couple new notes up front, and then your lick. And when you put those all together, what you have is a theme, you have a motif, something that's repetitive that the listener can hear and hear that you're developing, but you're not just playing the same static lick over and over again. So that's a really easy way to start adding some variety to your playing. I hope you got something out of this. If you're interested in more, if you're a lead guitarist that wants to get more out of your guitar playing, I highly suggest you click the link below so you get access. You can enter your name and email, and you'll get the How to Solo in Every Key instantly lesson, and you'll get a lot out of that. And then pretty soon I got a course that's going to help teach you how to solo the entire fretboard. So look forward to that. This is Josh Beatler with the Guitar Player School, and if you're in the Massachusetts area and you're interested in lessons, feel free to reach out to me too. I do teach, right now I'm teaching online classes, and hopefully when we get back to usual, I will have more lessons at home. Any good tips for keeping in sync with chord changes? Greg, are you talking about when you're playing lead guitar and trying to play to chord changes? Or are you talking about strumming chord changes? Hopefully you're still there. I got 2 people on here, so if you guys got a question, feel free to reach out while I'm here. Yeah. Soloing to chord changes? Okay. Soloing to chord changes. Lead guitar. Okay, good question. So let's just say, I'll give an example, okay? If I'm soloing to an A minor chord and a D minor chord, what you need to do in the beginning, in order to play over any sort of lead changes, you need to be able to anticipate when the chord is changing. Some people, when they're first learning lead guitar, they're not able to keep track of the beat and hear a chord change because they're so focused on their hands. So in order to get better at that, you need to slow down and listen more, play less, listen more, okay? But if you're trying to play to, say, a blues, and you can anticipate the chords, the way that you nail the chord change is right when there's a chord change, say from the A minor to the D minor, you want to land on a note that's in the new chord but wasn't in the previous chord. Sometimes they share notes, sometimes they don't. And if they do share a note, you can hit the shared note. So in the instance of A minor to D, they both have an A note in it, so it's a good note to hit in both chords. But on A minor, there's an E note, and on D minor, there's an F note. So that F note is a really, really good note to hit because it's going to help accentuate the chord that you just changed to. When you go back to the A minor, you'll want to get off that F and back to the E note because that's in the A minor chord. So you have to know a little bit about your chords and your arpeggio shapes in order to do this. But if you start with just 3-string arpeggios, you know, so here's an example. I don't know if you can see this because I see comments on the page, but here's my A minor, 5th fret, 5th fret, 5th fret. D minor is 5, 6, 7. And then the E7 chord is, let's just use those 3. So when it's on the A minor, then when it goes to the E, it really comes a lot down to knowing some small arpeggio shapes, being able to anticipate when the chord's changing, and right when that chord changes, you hit a note that's in that chord but not in the previous one. And it will really help identify the chord changes. So, but you have to be able to anticipate it, and you have to know some easy arpeggio shapes to get started with, and then you'll be able to, again, you have to be able to anticipate the chord and then hit the distinguishing note between the two. And again, sometimes they share a note, and that's great. So in that instance, the A would sound good over both chords. But when we drop to that E7, the A is not so much of a good choice anymore because there's no A in this chord. A G sharp, however, would be a great note to add in there. So sometimes you just need to know the arpeggio shapes and not the notes. Depends on how much music theory you want to get into, but that's how you do it, man. Anticipate the chord, hit the new note when the chords change. Focus on the arpeggios, less scales. Okay? So anyway, good question, man. So thank you guys so much for joining me. This is Josh at the Guitar Player School. Again, click the link if you want the How to Solo in Any Key lesson, and I will see you tomorrow at 4 p.m.